Hi, Mr. Nolan.
Hello.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing director Christopher Nolan, the man behind Batman trilogy, Interstellar, and Oppenheimer. His upcoming Odyssey will be the first ever in cinema history to be filmed entirely on 70mm IMAX. So please sit back and enjoy our conversation. We have prepared a little surprise for you, a miniature set, and I think you will find it familiar. All right, there we are.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it's a handmade. Obviously, you did a lot of miniature set and all this stuff before. We are not at the master level, just like you guys, but
very good.
We try our best.
No, that's excellent.
So it's like a mixture between two things. It's not the exact replica of the film.
I was going to say that'd be a bit close.
Yes, it's quite far away, but it's like this bit is a bunker, and this is the Trinity test.
Yeah, with the characters though.
Yes. So the first question is, obviously, I know you and your crew members went to Los Alamos to actually film some scenes for Oppenheimer, and why not build a set and film just in the normal studio?
Well, I'm a big believer in trying to go to real places and film in real locations wherever possible. I think that whilst with green screen or with effective set building, you can recreate any reality quite effectively. But for the actors, for myself, driving set, walking in, all the rest, walking into a studio is never as inspiring as, driving up a mountain onto the mesa and going to the real Fuller Lodge or going to the real Oppenheimer's house. There's something very exciting about that informs the way in which you make the film.
How was that experience? How was that trip?
It was great. I mean, it was very challenging to, our art department had to build the exterior of Los Alamos because the modern day town is still one of the leading atomic laboratories in the world. There's a Starbucks there, there's a very modern community. So the exteriors would have been very, very challenging to shoot there. So what we needed to do was find a landscape that was similar. And about 45 minutes away, my designer, Ruth de Jong, we found a place called Ghost Ranch that had a mesa, not unlike the one they had built Los Alamos on. And then we had to build, in the middle of winter, in a very short space of time, the art department had to build a representation of the town of Los Alamos as they built it, in 1942. We had to do it very quickly in ice storms, very challenging conditions. We also had to be very smart about how big we built it. We couldn't build the whole town, but we needed to represent the whole town. And so we did a lot with forced perspective and really planning with Hoyte van Hoytema, the director of photography, which camera angles we would use down the street, here, there, and build only what we needed to see.
So that must be really smart planning to make sure the perspective and the set looks larger.
Yes, and you have to think very carefully about where you're going to need to put the camera. So, for example, the T section, which is a very important technical section in the town, these white buildings, we built them, the very large buildings with a sort of corridor feeling with a bridge across them. And we built all that for real, but if you couldn't shoot it from the other end, because from the other end, you'd see that the buildings are only 5 feet wide. So they're very tall, but they're very, very narrow. But unlike a lot of sets and a lot of the way the filmmakers use sets, rather than just putting up flattage where you build one wall and then you're unfinished on one side, we build all the sides, even though the proportions are wrong. And what that means is if your camera is on the hill over there, you have a shootable set on the backside. So for 3/4 of the angles, the set holds up very well. Really, there's only one angle where you can see that the buildings are the wrong shape. And that required a lot of careful planning, and it's a technique I've used on a lot of other films. So with experience, you get to know exactly how much you're going to need to build.
If you don't tell me, I would never know you guys have a weird shaped house on set, but actually looks right on camera.
Yeah. We did the same with Dunkirk for the boats. So we built a very strange shaped sort of boat that looked very odd if you were just looking at it to eye. But when the camera was placed at the stern or at the bow, it looked completely correct.
It's amazing.
Okay, on to the second question. I have so there is a mini IMAX camera we have built. So it's a super small miniature. And why using IMAX camera? And this time, obviously, you got the 70mm black and white.
Well, the thing with IMAX is, I mean, these cameras are enormous. Not this one, but what it represents. In fact, it's a little overscale for the figures, but not much. It's a very big camera. It's, this big, and it's extremely noisy. But the film that runs through it is 65mm, 15 per film, and so it has the highest resolution of any imaging format ever devised. So the clarity and the depth of color, the imagery, is such that it sees the world very much the way the eye sees it. And when projected, particularly when projected from an IMAX film print, but also on their digital projectors, the screen disappears, the frame disappears, and you're just able to sort of be there, flying over the deserts of New Mexico, or there staring at Oppenheimer, face to face.
It's such a bizarre experience when we watch the film. It's like the close-ups.
Yeah.
The close-ups is like he doesn't need to say dialogue. It's literally you see his eyes and it tells the story.
Yeah, with this camera, you could see into his soul. You could see everything that's going on with the eyes, every nuance, as if you were sitting 6 inches away from him, using your eyes. So it just hoovers up information and gives us so much to work with. And then when we need to process this thing's full visual effects, or we need to layer things in or whatever, you have so much information to work from. It's incredibly versatile.
And how large is the 65mm? I know like a full frame is like this, and how large is the 65mm, the film?
The film strip is 65mm wide, so about that wide.
Yeah.
And it runs, each frame runs 15 perforations, so it's about that
really
wide.
large.
Yeah, very large.
How do you guys pull focus?
With difficulty. Yeah, we have very good focus puller, but it's challenging, particularly on interiors with wide apertures. We've made a lot of improvements to the lenses, to the way you could pull focus, to the way follow focus can work, and that's made a big difference. Okay. When we first started using the format on The Dark Knight 15 years ago, it was all of those things were very, very challenging.
Now let's get to the storytelling part. You're a master of doing like cross cut and cross storytelling. And let's say this is the detonating scene. How would you use a camera to build up the tension? If you are holding this camera, like which angle? What do you
holding the camera? Well, really everything to do with Oppenheimer and the way we did it is about being in Oppenheimer's head, seeing things from his point of view. This, with his hat there, I could tell being Oppenheimer, what we would largely be doing is putting the camera right behind him, looking over his shoulder, seeing what he's seeing, either with a wide-angle lens to incorporate him in the frame or with a longer lens to fish out the details he's looking at. And then we would turn around on him and do enormous close-ups, And so just in terms of physical proximity, because we're not composing. When we shoot with IMAX, Hoyte van Hoytema itself, we're not shooting two-dimensional pictures. We're not looking at composition within the frame. We're trying to have the frame disappear. So really, it's about physically where do you put the camera. In the case you put the camera very close to him, either looking back at him or, as I say, looking over his shoulder, seeing what's around, seeing the people near him. But we always kept the IMAX camera as close to Oppenheimer as physically possible.
Okay. So what's like the focal length you would choose?
Well, it's complicated with the IMAX format because
you need to adapt it.
Yeah, there are really two focal lengths that work incredibly well on that format. A 50mm lens, which is quite wide, and an 80. And because of the nature of the format, it's hard to describe, but depending on the situation, like the 80mm IMAX lens can feel quite wide, or it can feel like a long lens, really depending on the nature of what you're photographing. And where you put the camera. There are longer lenses, there are wider lenses that we sometimes use, but the best use of the format tends towards choice between a 50 and an 80.
Okay, well, that's interesting. First time knowing, like, okay, next time when I'm holding an IMAX camera, I will know. Yeah, I will try the 50 and the 80.
Well, and the 50 corresponds, in 35mm to about I think a 35mm lens. You know, it's fairly wide.
It's quite interesting to hear like a negative crop factor. Normally you hear the plus crop factor for the 35, Super 35 and all these.
Yes.
And you tell me like 50 looks like 35 field of view.
Yeah, no, it's complicated. We also were mixing with 5-perf Panavision cameras, and that's the same 65mm negative, but it's run vertically. And so it's 5-perf ratio. So the frame size is 1/3 the size. Okay. And so those focal lengths don't correspond exactly with either IMAX or 35mm. So you have a lot of different lens sizes. We would have a little card with lens sizes written on a sort of cheat sheet because it's a complicated array.
Okay, and obviously, like, the aspect ratio is also plays a really important part to make the screen disappear. And normally you have the 235, 239. These, for the vertical peripheral vision, you still see the black bars, but for IMAX format, you don't really see the...
On IMAX format, with their digital screens, we're able to fill top to bottom to their aspect ratio on the digital screens, which is defined by the chip they have in the projector, and that's 1:9 to 1.
Yeah.
But on a laser projector IMAX screen that's been built into one of their original 4:3 screens, we could fill the entire 4:3 image. This is very immersive. But we're also having to shoot, bearing in mind that in a lot of screens it'll be cropped to 2:2 to 1, which is not the IMAX ratio, but it's the ratio of our 70mm 5-perf projectors. And that's the format that the smaller cameras shoot natively. So we're mixing formats. So in an IMAX theater, particularly a laser projected 4:3 IMAX theater, you're going to see a shift in scenes. So we go outside, or we go up in the air over New Mexico, and the screen opens up. And then when we go back inside, it closes back down.
I also use aspect ratio as a creative tool.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a long time, since The Dark Knight. That was the first film where we experimented with it. And we found it to be a very useful tool for opening up the film, in particular ways.
Okay, and non-linear storytelling is really hard. We have tried before, but we failed. It's really hard. One thing that I'm really curious about is like, do you plan out the non-linear storytelling and the cross-cut when you're writing the screenplay, or it's like in the editing process?
You really have to do it when you're writing the screenplay, in my experience. With my first film, it was called Following. It's a film I shot on 16mm black and white, a no-budget film. So much smaller camera than this one. But I figured out the structure, and I knew I wanted a non-chronological structure. But what I did when I wrote the script is I wrote it chronologically, and then I re-edited it, and that didn't work very well for me because it took me a very long time to rewrite to make the film flow for the audience. And so ever since then, I've taken the view that you have to write according to the chronological structure that you know you're going to cut the film into at the end. So when I sit down to write the screenplay, I write from the first image you'll see on the screen to the second to third, right the way through to the end of the film, whether that's Memento, which is structured in reverse, or Oppenheimer, which is mixing a lot of different time periods, a lot of different points of view. But that way you create the flow for the audience. And I think very often when somebody has a film that they weren't sure exactly how they want to structure it, and in post-production they experiment with reordering it, it tends not to work very well. It's a bit like voiceover. You have to plan and write that at script stage, and then it'll work. If you try and add it afterwards, it can be very clunky.
It's a bit clunky and cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's something to learn. Yeah, now we know the mistake. We did try in the editing session, then we were like, it's not working. Yeah. It's really hard to transition smoothly.
The problem manifests itself in the transitions, but the problem is that every scene has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a particular emphasis to get that across. And if you don't know where the scene's starting, where the scene's ending when you shoot it, that's problematic.
So when you are shooting, will you be like shooting a little bit more than you have planned, or you be accurate with?
I often shoot more, and I plan with my cross-cutting. I do tend to plan to shoot continuously each timeline that then intercuts. So sometimes I need the actors to improvise beyond what's the script and connect the scenes together. And then in the edit suite, you're free to shift where those cuts take place to some degree. But I'm always mindful as we're filming the scene, am I achieving the right rhythm that will allow me to intercut the scenes?
So you're doing the editing in your head when you're...
You have to a degree, or you have to know that you've reached a point of acceleration in the cross-cutting where you can have the scenes play with a continuous intensity, and you will be allowed in the edit suite to jump back and forth because you're already at a point of energy where the audience can accept that. Where you have real difficulties is getting into that rhythm of combining timelines and having them contrast against each other.
Yeah, I mean, watching a film is like something we feel, for us, it's really hard to do, is to find the right pace for the film.
Yes.
You have some shots that's really, really long. And then when the fast pace needs to kick in, you always have the right rhythm to do it.
Yes, and the very complicated part of it is that for theatrical film, as opposed to television, I think, but very much for theatrical film, the pace of editing in a modern film has to shift through the film. So I sometimes find myself watching one of my old films. I'll see it on television late at night or something, and it'll be the last act. And I'll look at the editing rhythms and incredibly fast, blindingly fast. But I have to remind myself that for the audience in the theater, they've started off with a more moderate pace. And then over time, as they gain familiarity with the material and the rhythm of what you're doing, it has to get faster and faster to keep them engaged in the same way and to take advantage of the groove that they're in with the film and the familiarity they have with the different timelines and how they can interact. So in the case of Oppenheimer, the relationship between the color material and the black and white material, the length of time that we're in one as opposed to the other shifts through the film. And even the way the scenes are cut internally, you can have a faster editing rhythm towards the end of a film than you can at the beginning.
The pace will be faster at the end, tends towards.
Well, if you think about it, when you're 2.5 hours into a film, you're not really going to want to watch sort of Oppenheimer pull up in a car, get out, walk up the steps into a particular building. You know, those things have to start falling out of the film more and more and more through the film.
And for directing and guiding actors, how do you make all the dialogues not feeling cringe and out of place? That's really hard.
Well, it's just about tone, really, isn't it? As a writer, if you're writing your own material, you have to find a way to edit your dialogue. You know, you have to find particular methods that help you achieve the clarity of meaning. And so for me, I tend to view dialogue, I try to view dialogue almost as you would view architecture or design, which is to say, you know, form follows function. And so the meaning of the lines is paramount. And if you try to ornament them, that's where that cringe factor comes in. And so really I try to be disciplined with stripping the dialogue down to the basic meaning as far as possible.
Will you be like reading the dialogue yourself and try to act? You say you can't act, but
I did
not
to act it, but I did learn years ago that you should read it aloud to the degree that if you don't, when you're reading in your head, you read as you inhale as well as you exhale. So you don't put the correct pauses in. When you're speaking, you can't speak as you inhale. You're welcome to try. So when you're reading, if you read entirely in your head, you won't put the correct pauses in for the actors. But you don't have to act it, but just to read it aloud, at least to see how the rhythm of a line is going to work.
Okay. And for audio, obviously soundtrack and music is really important in your film. And you have worked with Ludwig. For the explosion scene, did you create the music first or the screenplay first?
For the energy sequence as a whole?
Yes.
We sort of worked in parallel. So the screenplay was very detailed about the structure of it. And I knew about the rough length of time and the rough tempo that I needed from him. And so that I was asking for. We then cut the sequence silent. And that's how I work. We cut silently first. Then we start cutting with sound effects. And then we start cutting with music. But Ludwig is in the edit suite every week watching the film with us. So as he gives me a demo and we loop it, make it work for a particular sequence, we then show him that in the context of the whole film. because music, very much like we're talking with editing rhythms, the demands of the music shift through the film. When Oppenheimer's playing on TV, you know, years from now, whatever, and you just tune into the last half an hour or something, the music's incredibly fast. You know, it has an incredible amount of energy and intensity, which is very logical when you've watched it from the beginning, because you've just built to that particular intensity. And so for that reason, Ludwig watches the whole film every week with us to see how his music is shaping into the whole. And that way the music becomes an integral part of the film. It's not something that's layered on afterwards. Okay. It's something that's important and fundamental to the film itself.
Okay. Next topic is about yourself. Do you procrastinate?
Well, I think we all procrastinate, but you have to know which deadlines are important. You know, as a writer, you'll always impose artificial deadlines, and you won't necessarily meet them. But you have to have serious goals that you do meet. And as a writer-director, it's easier for me to have that discipline, I think, because I know that when I'm on set every day, there is no procrastination. You just have to achieve what's on the schedule in that time, and you have to just keep moving forwards and moving forwards. And so I apply a bit of that to screenwriting. The flip side of that is you can't force screenwriting. It has to be ready. You have to be ready to write it. And when you're ready to write it, it can go reasonably fast.
How do you get ready to write it?
That's the imponderable question. You know, I mean, it's a combination of inspiration and I suppose just work, you know, but you need both. So quite often I find that working at something, trying it in a particular way, or studying it or reading around it, particularly when you're dealing with a piece of history, there's a lot you can read for inspiration and everything, and applying that process of writing and working quite often will produce inspiration, but not always. It's you know, it's a complicated thing.
And one last question, because a lot of our viewers they are young filmmakers in China. They're the young generations, and they often ask a question: is they are running low budget with almost no budget? How do they start? And any suggestions you want to offer to them?
Well, I made my first film with absolutely no money, and it worked. And the reason it worked is I had, in making films before then, short films, longer films, and struggling with achieving them, finishing them, making them the way I saw in my head, what I realized was to do a feature-length project with no money, you have to be very realistic about what is available to you. Who can you get to be in it? Where can you shoot? You have to craft the type of story that will work well with that. There's a feeling to a low-budget film, a no-budget film. There's a particular tone that is impossible to completely eliminate. And that has to be taken into account when you're deciding what type of story to tell. It's not that you shouldn't be ambitious, but if you try something that technically you won't be able to achieve, that's when it's just not going to work. If you can look around you and look at the assets that you have and the things that are exciting and interesting that you have access to, and build the story around that, that gives you the best chance for success.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Mr. Nolan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes my conversation with Mr. Nolan, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Please share this video with your fellow film lovers and give us a like and sub. We will be sure to see you next time.
Thank you, thank you. You can keep the IMAX camera.
I'm going to keep the IMAX camera, if that's all right.
Go for
the IMAX camera. That's beautiful.
Where's the box? You give him the box to protect the IMAX. Yes, it's really detailed.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan.